Hello, and welcome back to the Nonprofit Leaders Network podcast. Pamela Hawley, founder and CEO of Universal Giving, will be sharing with us today about growing a strong board, including finding, assessing, inviting, and engaging your board members.
Welcome to the Nonprofit Leaders Network podcast, where your host, KIRSTEN Bullock, interviews nonprofit CEOs and executive directors who share what's working. Show notes can be found at nonprofitleadersnetwork.com. Please add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. Now, let's get on with the show.
Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Kirsten.
You're welcome. Pamela Hawley is the founder and CEO of Universal Giving. They're an award-winning nonprofit that helps people donate and volunteer with top-performing vetted organizations all over the world. She's a winner of the Jefferson Award. It's like a Nobel Prize in community service. And as an aside, you might remember Hillary Schaefer on this show a few weeks ago, who was a recent guest. She's also been invited to 3 social innovation events at the White House. She also writes Living and Giving, a blog with the mission of inspiring leaders to live with excellence and love. Pamela, to help us get started, could you share a little bit about Universal Giving to help our listeners get an idea of the type of environment you're working in?
Yes, absolutely. Universal Giving is a website designed to really help people connect with quality giving and volunteer opportunities all over the world. So what we're really looking at is being able to provide, $25 to help build a well in Haiti, or it could be go on a volunteer trip to help build a school or to teach kids, and that could be in Tanzania. And so our whole goal is, if you want to give or if you want to volunteer, how can we make it easy for you? So people come to our website and they search for education, or they might search for the environment, and it comes back with a list of vetted organizations that all list according to their needs. So if it's the environment, it might be clean up a river or give $25 to clean up a river. So those are the kind of things that we help people do, is to help them give and volunteer all over the world.
Fantastic. And there's some organizations who started in that space who chose to do it as a for-profit company. What was it that led you to led the organization to form as a nonprofit?
That's a very good question. There's no right or wrong. You can form an organization to be a for-profit or a nonprofit and be a strong social mission. But I think the key is that what you really have to do is make sure that there is a very strong sense of mission behind what you're doing. And if your mission is to make money, then you should definitely set it up as for-profit and then have the social mission on the side. If the mission is really in your heart to really go towards serving the community first, then you should set it up as a nonprofit. And of course, these days you can do a hybrid, you can do both, but they're complex to manage and require having 2 boards. I chose a nonprofit because I specifically wanted to make sure that if I ever had to make a decision between making more money or serving the community, I could follow the mission to serve the community and do more there rather than just close another deal or get more revenue from my investors. Having said that, I still think that generating revenue and having a sustainability model is very, very important to what you do as a social enterprise.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for that. And I'm sure one of the first things you had to do was get a board established, start recruiting people for that. What surprised you most when you first started working with a board?
I think with a board, what is so amazing about it and so exciting is you can get these individuals who don't have that much time, but many of them are very, very high level. And basically what happens is that they can do so much for you literally just by putting in a phone call. And they could do everything from get you office space to get you a major partnership. And I think that's what's so powerful and so wonderful, is that if you get the right people on the board who have the right skills, the right resources, the right relationships, and the right heart and values, your organization can just take off, because they can just do a few small things and just make so many wonderful things happen for you.
Neat. Did you ever, when you were going through the process, how did you start identifying potential board members?
we are always identifying potential board members. In fact, we have a list of a potential board of directors and our potential board of advisors, and we actually work very strategically with our board of advisors as well. We actually groom them to be onto our board of directors. So our board of advisors, many people have them as a nameplate. For us, they're actually, many of them donate to us. We fundraise from them. We get them involved. They introduce us to marketing partnerships and work with us on our strategic documents. I think that then we start to move them into a board of directors position, so they're already excited about working with us, and then it's an easier move. Nice. I think one of the challenges that organizations do is they create a board of advisors, they put that nameplate out there. Okay, here's my stamp of the board of advisors, but they don't engage with them. You need to engage with your board of directors and your board of advisors and create those relationships. Keep them apprised. Many times I copy my board of advisors on my board of directors email so they're aware of what's happening. The board of directors, I think, is something that when we're looking for the right ones, we look for different qualities. For example, we look for people who are global. We look for people who are service-oriented. We look for people who have high-level relationships. We look for people who have financial wherewithal, although that's not the only criteria. We want people to be long-term, to have the right motive. And we also look for people who have a sense of graciousness and appreciation and humility and kindness, because you could get a very high-level board member, but maybe they don't have those qualities. And those are the kind of qualities that we expect from our team members, and we want them from our board as well. So I think the mistake that sometimes people look at is with a board member, could you have a board member that could bring you in a lot of money? You could, but they might not have the right motives, and it actually can be dangerous to your organization. So you need to make sure that they're of the right values, good relationships, some financial wherewithal, and are committed to this vision of what you're doing. And so it's a very holistic relationship. It's not just trying to get something from someone.
Mm-hmm. So how do you identify those potential people?
Well, I think when we identify who they are, we certainly, there are people that I go out there and I meet and I look at them and I say, okay, what is their relationship and their reputation and standing within the community? We look at their reputation. Mm-hmm. Number two, we look at what areas we think they might best serve on. Would they serve best on fundraising, on marketing, on corporate partnerships, on technology? So we look for different kind of buckets or categories that we think they might be able to participate in. And then we look at financial wherewithal, and then we look at values. So where we look for them is we might meet them at conferences. We do due diligence at the Foundation Center on funders. I'm constantly out there working with a lot of high net worth donor groups, so it's not really that hard for me to identify them. It's more about qualifying them against our category. So if someone were looking for good board members, I would look at the Foundation Center, and I'd make sure you're constantly relationship building and working within your community so you're meeting people naturally, because we don't really have to think about meeting them. For us, we're just trying to stay on top of it. So I think that that's the kind of thing that you want to make sure you're really embedded in the community.
Oh, absolutely. And going to those networking events and being out there so that you can meet the right people.
Exactly.
There's some organizations, as they go through the startup phase, the first group of people that they recruit, it seems to often consist of friends, personal acquaintances. So it ends up being almost a yes board for the person who's started it, because they're trying to find easy yeses. It sounds like you really go after people and ask them to engage in really intense ways. It sounds like you're not afraid to ask for a big commitment. Do you think that's impacted your?
I think it's a balance. I mean, certainly we make fundraising asks that are big of our board, and we definitely have board members who've given us six figures. On the other hand, some of our board members in the past haven't given it all, and yet they've given a lot as far as relationships in other areas too. I think we do ask commitments from our board. We have a board outcomes worksheet that states after each meeting what the board member is responsible for. And very similar to managing, let's say, your organizational goals and your employees, we look at managing our board, which is, okay, here's our outcomes, here's the board, this is what you said you were going to do. And then we keep on them to make sure that they are doing that and serving universal giving, because they need to be reminded, and they're often very busy. So we do make big asks, but it's a balance, because we're dealing with a holistic person. And so you don't want to ask too much, and you don't want to ask too little. And also you have to realize the balance of time that they have. Sometimes they might be on a plane flight for like the next 2 weeks, well, that's not a good time to make a big ask. So you need to be sensitive and thoughtful about when you make the big ask, and also not to ask too much or to ask too little. It's a balance, and it's very much of a gut instinct. You need to be very sensitive that way.
Great, thanks. And what would you say has been your greatest success in working with the board? Where do you think you and Universal Giving really excel?
I think the board has been instrumental in fundraising. I think the board has also been instrumental on the marketing front, really making sure that we're getting into some of the top marketing partnerships. And they've also been very instrumental in thought leadership as far as like really understanding our values and where we want to head. And you need people to bounce that off of. And I think finally, the biggest thing too is just really getting into some partnerships. We have a partnership right now that's very, very difficult to close. And we're basically putting our board and saying, who do you know? Who do you know? Who can you help us with this partnership? And that's really where you show that strength of, look, we've done everything we can as an organization. So now we need you to come in and help. We're not just coming and ask you to help when we haven't tried. We've tried and we've tried and tried and tried, and now we really need your help. And I think that's where you want to accelerate to get your board members of people that are beyond just your friends and family. And I actually disagree with that. I don't think you should have friends and family on your board. I think you can have friends and family support you in fundraising at the beginning. That's normal. But I've never had friends or family on board. Never. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in that. I don't think it's wrong or unethical, but I don't believe in it because I think that you can have their support. You already know you have their support. They might already give to you. They already listen to you. So go get someone new. Go get someone else who's not as wedded to you personally, and leverage your network even further. And it professionalizes it. And it's not just like, oh, so-and-so's mom or dad or sister is on this board. It's, no, these are the people who have these qualifications. They're on the board, and for that reason. And that provides a sense of professionalism for you. And so I think that's where you want to head in building your board from day one, not later on. Friends and family can give to you, but do not ask friends and family to be on your board.
Great advice. And then you're starting out on the right foot to begin with, rather than having to fix something.
Mm-hmm. Then you're getting more support from different sources. You've got it from friends, from family, and now your professional network. And it just expands your reach and your power and your impact even further.
Mm-hmm. And then it really validates the organization, because it says it's not just about family and friends. It validates the founder, the organization, and the people who are being served.
Exactly.
A win-win.
And that was a worry. That was definitely a worry for me. I thought about that at any time when I had an association with someone from family or friends, and that really concerned me. And at the points where we did cross the line, we made it absolutely clear that this was not a formal relationship, or we made it clear that, let's say it did happen to be a friend, that they were coming in at this one point to help close this partnership because they had X relationship at this organization. I mean, and that's certainly the case. We have a board member who I'm very close with, but the reason why he's on the board is because he is a major leader in our community. He was one of the key staff members at the Packard Foundation. He is totally involved in the whole high net worth donor conference scene, and he's an incredible thought leader in this sector. So he's on our board now, but he wasn't on our board 20 years ago. But I knew him 20 years ago, and I know him now. Well, why wasn't he on the board earlier? He didn't have that accomplishment. So there are times when you can do it occasionally if there's a super, super strong professional reason as to why they are bringing merit to the board at that time. And I found that to be very rare. In fact, I'd say this is the only time, I've only had one case in that case where I've done that. Other than that, we don't normally entertain that or to have that. I'd rather keep it separate. And it's smart to do that too, because it legitimizes everything.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So the converse of things going really well is when things start falling apart a little bit. In your 20 years background with the organization, is there a time when things maybe didn't go quite as well as you had hoped that they would? Some people might call that a failure or a learning experience. But if you could share a little bit about that and what you learned from it.
I think that every organization goes through ebbs and flows at all times of things that you want to work on and that you are always trying to improve. So I don't ever see, I think you want to be on a quest for excellence, and you always want to be improving things and ameliorating things. Even if things are good, you still want to be making them better. I think probably one of the tough times was probably about year 3 or 4. And it was where I realized that traditional fundraising, which actually really isn't even traditional, but getting major hits from, say, for example, a foundation or a big name foundation might not be the best pathway for me. Big name foundations are great. They give a lot of support to nonprofits. They also require a lot of reporting. And the reporting for each national foundation is very different. There is no template. You know, when we were applying to high schools, when I was growing up and applying to colleges, at that time, you had to fill out applications for, I applied to 13 different colleges and I had to apply 13 different applications. And now you've got a more of a standard application. That was not the case in my day. And it's not the case now with national foundations. So if you want to apply to some of the great big name foundations, like a Skoll or a Midjar or a Rockefeller, all of them are super. But if you do apply for them, then it's all individual. And then your reports that need to go back to them are individual. And it can take a lot of work. Now, the positive aspects of that are that you also learn a lot from doing those reports or doing that reporting, and it can be a great learning experience. But I think that for me, I realized that the way that the funding was going that was best for me and quickest was to go to individuals, go very much Silicon Valley style, and fundraise that way. So instead of looking at it from a bad view of like, oh gosh, I put all these applications to these big name foundations and I didn't get funding, very few percentage of nonprofits get it. I thought it was really low. It was hard. But then I realized, all right, you have to be very, very scrappy. You're going to have to watch your funds meticulously and then go after Silicon Valley style, going and getting angel funding. And that's what we did. So what I encourage you to do is when you hit that low time, examine it and say, is there an opportunity here? Is there an opportunity here that's actually better for me? This actually isn't maybe a low time because I'm just banging my head against a wall trying to go after X when instead, hey, maybe this door is open, because there's always a door that's open. There's always a door that's open. But you got to keep your mindset expecting that that door is open instead of just getting depressed because X foundation funding didn't come through. So that's where you have to tweak your mindset and go, okay, great. So I started building my board more towards being Silicon Valley style, venture capitalist investors, people who could write 6-figure checks or 5-figure checks or even less, whatever it was, that could support me that way so that I didn't get into a situation where I was financially at a low point. And that was a big turning point for me. So I would say when you hit those low times, make sure that you turn it around and you say, well, where's the high time here? Where's the opportunity?
Mm-hmm. And so with that population of people, those donors, did you find that was a lot more predictable, a lot more renewable than grant funding?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I think that any relationship is something you have to be very, very conscious of and not expect that it's predictable. I never take funding for granted. I never do. I don't think it's first of all, my philosophy in life is not to take anything for granted. Don't take team members for granted. Don't take your family for granted. Don't take your position in life for granted. Don't take anything for granted. So I look at it and I don't ever go, oh yeah, that's easy to predict. Sometimes we've got funders in who've given to us, and we didn't even know that they were thinking about giving to us. We were like, wow, this is amazing. And then other times you have situations where it's something that you've been trying, and it's not coming through. So you've got to, expand your outreach. I'd say that if you create a strong network of the private donors, it helps a lot. It helps a lot. They're invested in you. They care about you. They want to see you succeed. So I do think that there's something very valuable about that, whereas if you go to a foundation, there often is a 3-year sunset, a 3-year window. And while they might care about you, they might be like, we care about you, keep in touch. And we'll feature you in our newsletter or things like that, but they will have limited ability to continue to fund you. So I like the personal relationships of the individuals. I like that very, very much. But every individual is different, and you can't take it for granted. So I do love the individual side, I will say. I think that is, I won't say it's more predictable, but I'd say it's easier for me to work with because I love having those long-term relationships.
Nice, beyond that 3-year window.
Beyond the 3-year window. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, beyond the 3-year window. Because when you look at that, really, when you look at Silicon Valley, startup mode is 5 to 7 years. That's what it is. So just when you're getting your operations in place and all of that and your product and your proof of concept, 3 years, that's when you need to start taking off. The 3 to 7 year period is critical. absolutely critical. And I'm not saying all foundations only fund at the beginning for the first 3 years, but there's something really critical there that you do need funders that are beyond the 3-year mark. Absolutely. People who really want to stick with you long term, and they're excited to stick with you long term. This isn't a bear. This isn't, something they're afraid about. They want to do this because they see the progress. They're excited about it. So they're not hamstrung by, okay, now I need to stop after 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And do you have any closing words for our listeners that might help with some inspiration or encouragement?
I think what I would say is always look up. You've got to look up, even when you're facing a tough time in your business. And we all face tough times. Sometimes we face a tough moment in a day. You might not be having a great day. You might face a tough moment. Sometimes you have challenges with fundraising. Sometimes you have challenges with team members. Sometimes there might be a challenge with something not going right with your program or your website. But as long as you're advancing, as long as you have motive towards driving towards excellence, towards doing your best, towards showing up every day to keep trying, keep persevering, following your values, keep looking for the light, keep looking up. Keep looking for the light, keep looking up. Don't look at all the negative things. Don't focus on that. It amazes me. If you want something to grow, you've got to water it, right? And so we know that with plants, right? We've got to water it. We have to nurture it. We have to put fertilizer around it. Don't fertilize and water the bad thoughts. No organization has grown by pouring water and fertilizing and patting down all the soil like we lovingly do around a rose garden and rose plants. Then the rose garden flourishes. Don't fertilize, water complaints, negativity. You're not going anywhere. You're just tearing things down. You're just tearing things down. Whether you as a leader or whether it's an employee or a funder or a board member, you've got to believe. And you've got to keep advancing. So I will say this, when you hit those tough times, make sure your team knows and you know your values. We talk about our values, our mission, and our vision a lot. We send it out on email. We talk about it in our marketing. We make sure it's active and it's live. If your values aren't just something on the wall, and our values are excellence, trust, listening, inspirational, measurable results, if your team knows that and they're watching for that and they're hearing you speak about that, they'll look towards that. Water what you want to see grow. You don't water complaints. You don't water negativity. You water, oh, I see improvement. Oh, I got positive feedback. I'm going to make this program better. Oh, I got a vision of how I can make this service better, or how I can be a better employee today, or how I can be a better leader and a better CEO today. Even if you face a challenge, look up, look towards the light, and look to how you can make it better.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Pamela, for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me, and please let me know how I can help. I'm always happy to help other leaders who are out there, and we hope that you'll also visit Universal Giving and give of your heart and spirit by volunteering and giving at universalgiving.org.
Great. Thank you, Pamela. And thank you to our listeners for everything you do to make the world a better place.
Thanks for listening to the Nonprofit Leaders Network podcast with KIRSTEN BULLOCK. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll check out our prior episodes and that you'll pass along our web address, nonprofitleadersnetwork.com, to your friends and colleagues in the nonprofit sector.